Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I'm Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founding minister and spiritual director. You are invited to learn more about this new teaching center by following us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Subscribe, join, follow, and spread the news with others who may be interested in the work we are going to do in the world. Namaste and blessings. Time for service.
Join us on February 12th and 26th for a Zoom gathering, a time of camaraderie, conversation, and fellowship. If you are interested in joining us, send an email to spirituallyintegratederarts@gmail.com, and the Zoom link will be sent to you once again for this month. That's February 12th and 26th. Now, if you are ready, it's a new month, a new theme. The theme for February: curiosity as a superpower. Curiosity, one of the most basic calls of life, truly is a superpower. As we move through this month, we will be pulled by curiosity to look below the surface, to look within, to release into the world the gifts that curiosity has revealed to us, and then lean into the wonderment, the amazement, the magnificence of what it means to live each day with this heightened awareness of how curiosity inspires and ignites our lives. As we reconnect passionately and purposefully with our superpower, curiosity, this excitement of what could be, this excitement of what will be, moves us from apathy and complacency into this inspiration of the greater yet to be, the open at the top, the treating and moving of our feet. Breathe. Now, in alignment with that, today's message: what lies beneath the surface? That which lies beneath the surface has always been a mystery to us. For some people, it brings forth a feeling of excitement and enthusiasm. But for many others, most others, the unknown, it is approached with, it causes trepidation and fear and anxiety. Today, we are going to dive through, like Superman through a brick wall, we are going to dive through the fear of the unknown to discover and to reveal the wonderment and the power that we gain from the unknown. And we revel, we celebrate, we are energized in this place of energy and awareness, and that gives us the ability to now share these gifts with the world. Breathe. So what is this? Okay, got you. True. But the question is, what lies beneath the surface? Say it again. More ice. Well, yes, that more iceberg. Yes. True. Is what is above the surface and what is beneath the surface, are they the same? Are they different? Okay, well, yes, correct. You're right. And it doesn't really matter. The question for us is, because this is a parable, it's an analogy, what we are invited to step into is this idea of there's this trinity, this idea of three questions. What is the above? What is the surface? And what is beneath the surface? So what is above the surface, for example, the human eye can see as light reflects and is bounced off of objects. The eye picks up the light and then electrical signals to the brain, interprets, etc. What is the surface? There is this line, there is this above frequency and below frequency. Whatever is above the frequency, the human eye can pick up and detect. There are certain frequencies and waves of light that the human eye can't. That's beneath the surface. Human ear is the same thing. There is sound that we can hear. There's the bass sound, and there is sound that the human ear can't pick up. But like a dog whistle, the dog can hear certain things. And there are things that even the dog can't hear that bats can hear. So for us, it's anchoring into this idea of asking ourselves at any given moment, what is this thing that I am experiencing that is above the surface? Then what is this neutral point, or this veil that separates what I see from what I don't see, the known from the unknown, the experience from the consciousness that is affecting or contributing to or creating the experience? Sitting with this idea of all three of these questions gives us greater awareness into how we transform and transmute the experiences within our own individual lives and collective. Now, speaking of three aspects or three faces of the Trinity, let's talk about this legend where Brahma, the supreme god in Hinduism, has a conversation with a council of other gods, because at this time, humans were also gods. And yet the humans weren't stewarding their divinity very well. They were abusing it, and Brahma was a little upset. So Brahma gathers some of the other gods together and says, look, I want to hide this from them. Give me some suggestions on where to hide it. And there were all kinds of suggestions. Deep in the earth, deep in the ocean, and blah, blah, blah. And Brahma is like, cool, gotcha. More suggestions? I got you. And then Brahma comes up and says, no, because they're going to look in all of those places. I know what we're going to do. We're going to hide their divinity deep down inside the human themselves. The humans are going to search all over the world externally, but they are not going to look for it within themselves. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is within, and all else will be added. They're not going to look within. And this legend reminds us that throughout time, humans have looked all over the place. We have dug, we have explored, we have searched, we have dived, we have all kinds of things, looking, seeking, searching. And yet, that thing we are looking for already exists within ourselves. And that's precisely where curiosity comes in. If we are truly curious, we will look within. Now, since we're talking about superpowers, I would be remiss if I did not mention superheroes. Many of us think that superpowers are reserved for superheroes. And if curiosity is a superpower, we think curiosity is reserved for superheroes like Einstein. They're reserved for certain superheroes. Batman, Tony Stark, Iron Man. It's reserved for them. Like, it's easy to think of superheroes as these folks. It's easy to think of superheroes as these folks. But it's not quite as easy to see superheroes as these folks. Because the moment we recognize them, because it's Black History Month, recognize them as being superheroes with superpowers, we're reminded that we too are superheroes with superpowers. And that if we have superpowers, we are asked, what am I doing with the superpowers? What am I called to do with my superpowers? How am I being a beneficial presence in the world because of my awareness and access and practicing of my superpowers? Breathe. Because if we're not curious enough about that, then we are not going to do the work to discover. As our global vision says, we envision a world where each and every person discovers their own personal power. But if I'm not curious, I'm not going to even seek to discover. I'm going to be okay with what is. I'm not allowed to vote. I don't care. I'm okay with not voting because I'm Black, because I'm a woman. I'm okay with not. We're never going to discover. We're never going to look for greater ways of evolving and shifting consciousness because we're complacent. But if we are going to invite curiosity as that superpower into practice, then yes, we envision a world where every single human being is curious enough to look within, to discover their own personal power, their own innate divinity, their own awareness of the God self that they are. Now, as that quote said, the global vision, we discover. Now, when we think of discover, find, to locate, to come across, to come upon, to bring light to, right? We think of discover in terms of this, but also remember that to discover means to uncover. When they discovered certain treasures, wherever that may be, in Egypt, in the pyramids, in the wherever, they uncovered earth to find it. The Nag Hammadi text was uncovered, it was unburied, right? So the archaic definition of discover means to divulge, to make known, to reveal, to tell, to proclaim, to declare, to communicate. The moment we discover this personal power, the moment we discover our innate divinity, we have a responsibility to declare it, to communicate it, to show up as it, that are in the same way that Gandhi said, my life is my message. Is your life demonstrating that science of mind and spirit, that new thought is your message, that love is your message, that wisdom and creativity is your message? Are you living in such a way out loud and boldly that you are making known what this awareness is? You are revealing it in your every action. There's an old samurai maxim that says that being who has attained mastery of an art reveals it in their every action. Are you revealing it? Are you proclaiming it? Not just in words, but in your actions as well. Are you showing up as that? Breathe. Now, one of the things I want to do, because you know me, is I want to talk about a strange case of curiosity using Doctor Strange, specifically from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though the comic book and they're very closely aligned, but I want to focus on the movie. Using him as an archetype to demonstrate this idea of curiosity, because we find many indicators in this character that having curiosity and being curious are in fact demonstrations of our spiritual awareness, and that curiosity is a God quality. And that because it is a God quality, we are encouraged to nurture, to strengthen, and to practice, to communicate, to proclaim, to declare this God quality. Breathe. As the Ancient One, the Sorcerer Supreme, told Stephen, at the root of existence, mind and matter meet. Thoughts shape reality. That easily could have been written by Ernest Holmes, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Johnny Coleman, Emma Curtis Hopkins, The Kabbalion, because it references what we already know. At the root of existence, at the root of experience, at the root of condition, mind, there is only one mind, and that mind is God. And what shows up as matter, God in form, they meet. How could they not meet? They are one and the same. And that thoughts, the mental equivalent, thoughts affect and shape reality. They shape experience. Are we curious enough to dive into this as a practice to demonstrate this as a fact? Stephen Strange, pre-accident, was a very successful surgeon, and it was curiosity that made him become a surgeon. Car accident, it was curiosity that made him seek out being healed or being cured or whatever you want to call it. It was his curiosity that led him through the journey of brokenness to wholeness. See, he was injured, and his curiosity, well, what can I do? Went to physical therapy. And it was there that a physical therapist mentioned something to him where he was like, no, that's not possible. But curiosity called him into, but what if? And then he follows that lead and goes speaks to Pangborn, and Pangborn tells him about Kamertage, and curiosity makes Stephen travel to India in search of Kamertage, in search of the Ancient One. Curiosity led him from this journey of brokenness to wholeness. And the funny thing is, what he thought he was looking for was a way back. which actually was a way forward, a new life. But it was his curiosity that led him there. Breathe. Ernest Holmes says, these thoughts, ideas, feelings, hopes, expectations, doubts, fears, and faiths make up that thing within us which is attracting or repelling certain experiences. It's all of these things, all of our thoughts, our ideas, our feelings, all of that stuff that make, am I attracting or am I repelling? Now, be mindful that we can attract good and we can attract not so good. Like I can attract an abusive partner, or I can repel an abusive partner. I can attract greater wealth and abundance, or I can repel greater wealth and abundance. I can attract what more food, more not good food, a lot of whatever or I can repel not good, not healthy food for my body system, whatever that is. So it's not the attracting or the repelling in and of itself. It's what is the experience that I am seeking to experience. Focus on that. And then ask, if I want to experience this, what do I need to bring in? What do I need to push out? What do I need to attract? What do I need to repel? And it is curiosity that makes us even ask that question. It is curiosity that makes us want to discover the answers to what is it that I want to experience. And then we follow the train of thought through all of our thoughts, our ideas, our paradigms, our beliefs, our feelings, our doubts, our fears, etc. We identify, as Michael Bernard Beckwith says, the pain will push until the vision pulls. Curiosity is what gives us the ability to relinquish the pulling of the pain. I mean, the pushing of the pain to surrender into the pulling of the vision. Are we willing to be curious enough to say, what is my vision? What does it mean for me to surrender into it? What does it mean for me to be pulled by it? Are we willing to ask those questions? Holmes says, fear arises from that mental attitude which limits the possibility and the willingness of spirit to give. I will come back to that in a second. The willingness of spirit to give us the good that we so greatly desire. Now, spirit is always giving. So it's not a matter of if spirit is willing. I don't want to give Ray $1 million. Spirit's not willing to give me the good that I desire. It doesn't work that way. Spirit as us, if I do not feel worthy of, then my willingness as spirit is what is prohibiting that good that I desire, that I say I desire, from being attracted to me. Right? So it's not spirit in and of itself, it's spirit as us. Are we as spirit, are we willing to allow that good to come in? Or are we so immersed in the fear and all of the mental shenanigans that are keeping us? Are we curious enough to dive in and ask those questions? Breathe. Back to Dr. Strange. So he listens to what Jonathan Pangborn tells him, and he follows, and he goes to India in search of Kamar-Taj, in search of the Ancient One. And be mindful that the Ancient One already knew, long before Stephen even had the accident, the Ancient One already knew that Stephen Strange was going to be coming to Kamar-Taj. The Ancient One already knew, because spirit is always seeking to express itself through us. Whatever it is you seek, whatever it is you desire, is desiring to express through you, in you, and as you. Are you willing to give it the space to do so? Ernest Holmes says, the first step in overcoming any fear, yeah, we're going to have to revisit this one too. The first step in overcoming any fear is to concede that God is for us. Well, it would have to be. It has to be for itself, and what we are is it. So yes, this done, we have at once overcome the fear by seeing that there is nothing to be afraid of. Then why do children have bulletproof backpacks? Why do we? I understand what you're saying, Dr. Holmes, but so we have to find that space of, What is an irrational fear? What is a factual fear? And discern. And the overcoming of the irrational, exactly what he's saying. The world is all right and we can meet it on its own terms. Yes, the world as an absolute, the world as a concept, the world as a spiritual construct is absolutely fine. And we should meet it on those terms. And because we know that, we meet it on the terms of what we experience: mass shootings, what we experience: racism, sexism, homophobia, police violence, police sanctioned murder. Because we know this, we bring this to this. But are we curious enough to even investigate this? And are we curious enough to actually see how to connect that to this and bring the anti-venom or the antidote to all of this that is going on? Because simply to say there is nothing to fear is metaphysical malpractice. Breathe. David Brooks says, to openness, curiosity, and reverence, there is an instant freshness of perception, a desire to approach and to affiliate, to feel wonder in the face of beauty is to be grandly astonished. Are you curious to bring this reverence? Are you curious to stand and feel this wonder in the face of love, in the face of joy, in the face of your own innate power? Are you willing to feel awe? Are you willing to feel gratitude in the face of your own beauty and divine magnificence? And are you curious enough to truly ask the questions and to dive beneath the surface in order to experience it that way? Breathe. Back to Dr. Strange. So, because Stephen Strange is inquisitive and curious, when he's, learning about Kamar-Taj in the library, he sees some books over there that the librarian, Wong, tells him those books are specifically in the ancient one, the Sorcerer Supreme's, specifically, the Sorcerer Supreme's collection. So later on, Stephen comes in looking for Wong, and Wong's not there. And he glances at the book and he gets the book and he pulls it down, Curiosity. And he opens it, Curiosity, and he starts going through it, Curiosity. And he sees a drawing and he remembers that drawing. Oh, it's that thing. It's the Eye of Agamotto. Curiosity. Curiosity pulls him to go get the eye. Curiosity, now that I have the eye, Curiosity says, well, let me read the Sanskrit. What is the spell? Curiosity, he does the spell. Curiosity, he continues reading and he forms the time spell. Well, wait a minute, does this actually work? He pulls the apple and puts the apple in front of him. He practices what he is seeing and he ages the apple and he brings the apple back. And he had bitten into it. He takes it even back to pre-bites, right? So he's manipulating time. He's manipulating conditions based on what he's reading. He's practicing it. Now, what does this have to do with us? Well, let's ask good old Goethe. Johann Wolfgang Goethe says, I like saying his name, Goethe says, knowing is not enough. Knowing the science of mind, whatever's in the you could have the whole textbook memorized. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Being willing to change racism is not enough. Being willing to abolish sexism is not enough. Being willing to be emancipated is not enough. We must do. We must act, treat, and move our feet. Being willing to treat isn't treating. Knowing how to treat isn't treating, right? I know how to do a spiritual mind treatment. But am I doing it? I'm willing to do a spiritual mind treatment for you. I'm willing. But am I doing it? Right? Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. We must act. That's what this has to do with it. He knew and then he applied. He was willing and so he practiced. breathe. Because that brings us into now this idea of Mahasida isn't specifically related to, I like it because it's India. They were in India, but it's not from the movie. Mahasida, break it up into the two words, Maha meaning great, Sida meaning achiever. Okay, so the great achiever is a name that has been given to describe a certain collection of spiritual adventurers, spiritual achievers who were like rebellious saints who, having achieved spiritual awakening, having achieved enlightenment by disregarding convention, mind you, they achieved this great awareness, this great intuitive guidance that moved them. They opened their heart space and moved them. They penetrated into the core of life and moved them by going beneath the surface. Now, are we willing to go against convention? Convention says women can't vote. Convention says Black people can't vote. Are we willing to go against convention? Are we willing to, even within New Thought, there are certain levels of convention where we are very comfortable and we do not move forward? Are we willing to disregard convention to open up, to open at the top in order to achieve next level, greater levels of upgrading our spiritual awareness? The only way we do that is through our curiosity. Pema Chodron says, we can learn to meet whatever arises with curiosity and not make it such a big deal. Now, what she is saying is, and not obsess about it. We need not make this thing, as we used to say, make a mountain out of a molehill. Observe it for what it is. Meet it as it arises. And let your curiosity give you the ability, as she says, instead of struggling against the force of confusion, we meet it and relax. Instead of struggling against racism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, etc., instead of struggling against, we meet it where it is. And because we are relaxed, because we know, because we do not need to follow and are bound by convention, we are able, through our curiosity, to avail ourselves to new, greater ways of being present. See, Orville and Wilbur Wright didn't even know what a plane was. They didn't know how to do it, but they were willing to step into the mystery, to explore. They let their curiosity guide them and lead them to the next, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, you don't need to see the whole staircase, just this step. And they were led by their curiosity to that next step and the next step and the next step, till now there are airports and planes all over the place. There are any number of flights on any given day throughout the world. Are we willing to yield into our curiosity and let it guide us to break convention into new ways, a new thought, a new consciousness of how to show up in the world? Because in order to do so, we go back to Dr. Strange. The Ancient One says, you cannot beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own. To which Stephen says, what kind of nonsense? That don't make sense. I control it by surrendering control? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. To which the Ancient One says, not everything does. Not everything has to. Your intellect, your knowledge, your knowing has taken you only so far in life, but it will take you no further. Surrender, Stephen. Practice. Surrender. Don't focus on, I need to understand exactly how A times B divided by the cosine of C equals the tangent of. Let all that stuff go. Stop making such a big deal about what you know and what the intellect and what convention says. Relax and surrender into. Brene Brown says, faith is a place of mystery where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. Faith, life-affirming faith, is a place of mystery, that place where Einstein didn't know, He was curious. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't know. He was curious. Toni Morrison didn't know. She was curious. James Baldwin didn't know. He was curious. Maya Angelou didn't know. She was curious. Carter G. Woodson didn't know. He was curious. To step into that place of mystery, curiosity, to find the courage to believe. I cannot see a world that works for all. I don't see it above the surface, but I acknowledge it beneath the surface. And so what I am doing is anchoring into this truth and then bring what is beneath the surface to the surface, what is in the invisible to the visible, what is in consciousness to manifest reality. Are we willing to be so curious to allow ourselves to move through the fear of uncertainty and move step by step? Breathe. Back to Dr. Strange. There's a conversation between he and the Ancient One. The Ancient One says, look, man, you've spent your entire life looking through a keyhole, and you've spent your whole life trying to widen that keyhole, to see more, to know more, to be able to do more. And now that I am telling you that there is a way that it can be widened in ways that you can't possibly even imagine, you reject the idea. You reject the possibility. You prefer to be bound by your logical convention that says, and then this is what his response is. No, I reject it because I don't believe in fairy tales about chakras and about energy or the power of belief. There is no such thing as spirit. We are made of matter and nothing more. Woo, say what now? Say what? Right? He was bound by, he was enslaved to the knowledge, to the logical mind of science. The same way Shuri, when her mother, Queen Ramonda, took her out to the bush to do a ritual, burning their funeral garments. And her mother tells her this story about how she surrendered upon when her son died, when T'Challa died, and she felt his presence in the breeze and the sunlight. And Shuri's like, Mother, that was not my brother. That was your imagination because you needed to be comforted. Because Shuri, as a scientist, it needs to be tangible, it needs to be measurable. Love can't be measured. You can't pour 3 tablespoons of love into a cup and say, here's love. You can't put, Shuri felt grief, but you can't scoop 2 scoops of grief into a petri dish and measure it. It doesn't work that way. Yet it is real, yet it is a factual experience. So once again, we are invited to move into this space. Curiosity, widen the keyhole, to see more, to know more, and to do more. Breathe. Because based on that, we have to listen to Rumi, who says, you've been walking the ocean's edge, holding up your robes to keep them dry. You must dive naked under and deeper under, 1,000 times deeper. Dive into the water. In order to do this, we must surrender convention, because convention says, keep your robes dry. Convention says, keep the nakedness covered. Remember Adam and Eve? We are naked. Get the leaves. Oh, that's poison ivy. Cover yourself. God shows up and they're like, oh, hey, where are y'all? Why are you hiding? Because we're naked. Who told you you were naked? Convention. So they covered up. Convention. Go the way things have always been. Convention. You can't vote. Convention. Sit in the back of the bus. Convention. Witchcraft. Burn them at the stake. Convention. Are we willing to throw the robes off, to dive naked beneath the surface 1,000 times deeper? Breathe. Ernest Holmes reminds us, be curious. God has implanted curiosity in us because it's in itself. This is how we know it's a God quality. God has implanted curiosity within itself as us to keep us from sitting still, comfortable in one place. If we didn't have curiosity, we would not, could not have evolution. Are you willing to be curious? Are you willing to access your God quality? Breathe. Yes, we're doing this out of order because I want us to immediately jump into that. So our declaration for this week, based on that, be curious. I'll say it first and then you repeat with me on the second go round. I know that spirit is for me, so I dive with confidence into the unknown. Together, I know that spirit is for me, so I dive with confidence into the unknown. Breathe. I know that spirit is for itself, therefore it must be for me. So I dive 1,000 times deeper with confidence, with curiosity into the unknown, and I evolve. This week's practice. And if you don't already join the Thursday night group that goes over this, feel free to reach out to Tracy so she can send you the information and the link, because from what I'm told, it's a very lively and powerful discussion. This week, ask yourself, what is holding me back? Am I comfortable where I am? Number 2, is the world a scary place? What scares me? What can I do about the fear? What can I do about the condition of the fear? Meaning, gun violence scares me. Gun violence is a condition. What can I do about that condition? Breathe. Is there something that I just don't want to know? You know, we say ignorance is bliss. Is the reason that I'm not curious because there is something I don't want to know? And if there is, why not? Number 4, are you curious about anything? Like one of the things that I'm curious about that I love is, I love watching those shows about how it is made. How are crayons made? And they show you the factory and the machinery and all this. It's like, wow, that's fascinating. How does dude make all that stuff out of chocolate, sculptures? And wow, what are you curious about? Breathe. Number 5, revisit that Hindu legend and discuss what it specifically is communicating to you and what it makes you curious about. Same thing, go back to that Dr. Strange archetype and discuss when in your life did curiosity pull you through the pain that pushed you? When did curiosity pull you to that place from brokenness to wholeness? And then lastly, discuss the quote by Holmes, be curious. God has implanted curiosity in you to keep you from sitting in one place. If you didn't have curiosity, you would not have evolution. What are you invited to discover about your own life that will further your evolution? Breathe. And let us close out in prayer. Simply anchoring into this moment, anchoring into this breath where all is available. This next breath is available, and this next breath is available, and this next breath is available, which means God is always available. The power that is God is always available, just like this next breath, just like this next word. I don't have to look for the word. I don't have to rummage through an index thing and find the word. I don't have to discover the word. The word is there. And as soon as I am ready, that word is spoken. Why? Because once again, God is ever present. So in this moment right now, I speak this word for myself, and knowing what is true for me is true for all of us. The ever-present presence of the infinite right here, right now. And so I lean into what it means for me to be even more curious. How do I embody more God? What does it mean to embody more God? What does it mean to embody more love? What does it mean to be the embodiment of more divinity? What does it mean to show up in the world as science of mind and spirit? Not just to know it, not just to read it, not just to be willing to practice it, but what does it mean to show up as the very living embodiment of science of mind and spirit? I lean into the curiosity of all of my superpowers so that I may be an ever present, an ever more, an ever greater beneficial presence to the world. For that is I, it's how I make my mark, meaning it's how I leave ripples into the vast, infinite waters of creation. It is how I contribute to a world that works for all, how I show up as a 21st century New Thought Good Samaritan, how I practice principle, how I practice the presence. And I breathe because the law says yes. And knowing that the law says yes, I know that that means this entire discussion, this entire message, this entire benediction, all of this is already answered prayer. It is already done. It is already so. And so I let it be. And I say, and so it is. Namaste, much love and blessings. And remember, if you want to join us for that after message stuff, send an email and you'll get the Zoom link. Other than that, see you somewhere during the week. Much love, much appreciation.